probation. That's it. As the book shows, there are certainly creative and compassionate probation and parole staff who are helping people find work, stay sober, and reconcile with their families. But these experiences are the exceptions. After a century of correctional practice, we have learned that these exceptions have been impossible to scale. As Vinny shows, reform efforts are technocratic, timid, and exclude the voices of the communities that are most affected. The system exacerbates racial inequality and imposes a significant burden on low-income people. Instead of building a better mousetrap, he concludes, we need to look at abolishing probation and parole altogether. It is very easy, even simplistic, to say we should abolish a large and likely harmful apparatus of penal control. The essential question facing the justice movement in America today is, how can foundational change be made? How can we build alternatives when faced with the organized opposition of criminal justice officials, the risk aversion of politicians, and a public who've been told that only punishment can provide safety? This is where Vinny comes in. The book draws on research, personal experience, and local innovations across the country to examine concrete examples with the potential for foundational change. In answer to the question of how to make foundational change, Mass Supervision offers a practical, no-nonsense approach. We need more work like this. The injuries to justice in America are many and varied. They range from the brutality of police killings of unarmed civilians to the banality of technical violations for missed appointments. Unfortunately, banality conveys no urgency, but the injustice is real nevertheless. Mass Supervision commands our sense of urgency and, even better, offers a path forward. Bruce Western, Columbia University, New York City, December 2022. Introduction. Fitting the key to the lock. My mission has been to raise the fallen, reform the criminal, and so far as my humble abilities would allow, to transform the abode of suffering and misery to the home of happiness. John Augustus. A report of the labors of John Augustus for the last 10 years, 1852. Don't fuck it up. Mayor Michael I. Bloomberg. For much of my career as a public servant and advocate, I didn't give much thought to probation and parole. I had been battling against mass incarceration since the early 1980s, bringing to the fight both the tenacity that comes with growing up in blue-collar Brooklyn and loyalty to and respect for a blossoming advocacy movement in places like New York, California, and Washington, D.C. Yet it wasn't until 2014, when New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg tapped me to run the city's probation department, that I began to take serious notice. I was hardly alone in my consideration, or lack thereof, of probation and parole. Collectively known as community supervision, these systems were in many people's view marginal topics or confusing distractions from the principal battle against the explosive growth of imprisonment. Probation and parole were understood as alternatives to incarceration, as gateways into jails and prisons, or as a little bit of both. This lack of consensus rendered targeted intervention, research, or reform elusive goals to most. Starting on a summer day in 2009, when I interviewed to run one of the nation's largest probation departments, continuing throughout my time there, and since as a researcher and reform advocate, I would learn that most elected and appointed officials, and many advocates, were, like me. They didn't really pay that much attention to community supervision. This ubiquitous indifference existed even though probation and parole surveilled twice as many people as were locked up in all the jails and prisons in the country. So, what do you think of probation? Mayor Bloomberg asked, after getting past my New York bona fides, born, raised, and educated there, even though I was living at the time in Washington, D.C., running the district's juvenile justice agency. Not much, I replied. I went on to describe that I generally considered probation a poor service given to poor people, and a service that most elected officials didn't think or care.